The news of Pope Francis' death not just stopped the Vatican's watches, he stopped hearts. Millions of faithful, from the field to the great capitals, came together in prayer, each in his own way, with his pain. For many, it was like losing a grandfather who knew how to welcome his eyes. And when the people feel this emptiness, it is because something deeper is at stake. The fear of what will come, the hope that God will continue to lead the church wisely. In the heart of Rome, 135 cardinals come together. It is not a common meeting. There are no inflamed discourses or public debates. There, silence is worth 1,000 arguments. Most of these men were chosen by Francisco himself, which points to a strong inclination of continuity. It is like when a teacher forms his students. Even without saying, he plants in them the desire to follow his mission. The conclave, for those who do not know, is like an armored spiritual retreat. No cell phone, no social networks, no vanities. Focus is one, hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit. This is not a power game, as many imagine. Anyone who has followed the choice of a pope knows that it is more like a group of siblings trying to find the best shepherd to take care of the sheep. Of course, in a world used to elections and campaigns, there are those who think the cardinals are there negotiating. But anyone who understands the backstage of faith knows that it doesn't work that way. The process involves a lot of prayer, a lot of personal regret, and, especially, listens. Listen from above, listening to the other, listening to the heart. It is a call to personal renunciation in favor of the greatest good of the church. The mission now is finding someone who not only knows how to command, but inspire. A leader who unites spirituality, simplicity, and courage that the world needs, especially in a time when everything is disposable, where convictions have become opinion. And it is precisely in this scenario of uncertainty and headquarters of direction that the first names with the potential to surprise the whole world begin to emerge. Leave your prayers in the comments for the next pope, or just write Amen as proof of faith. And if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, take the opportunity to subscribe now and stay on top of the most important revelations of the church. Among the names that echo in the closed rooms of the Vatican, one appears almost silent often, Pietro Parolin. He doesn't raise flags, doesn't look for spotlight, and maybe exactly why it's so strong. Vatican Secretary of State, Parolin is the type of man who prefers a well-sewn agreement in the backstage to an inflamed speech on St. Peter's balcony. And in a church that faces internal and external tensions, stability has become a rare asset. With decades of diplomatic experience, he knows the weight of each word. He has sat with closed regime leaders, dialogued with Vatican opponents, and calmed internal storms with his voice. His style resembles that wise uncle who solves family discussions with a simple look. And at a time when the world rotates too fast, a leader with emotional break can be exactly what the church needs. There are those who say, however, that the pastoral fire is missing, that your vocation is more for runners than for the pulpits. And here comes the reflection. Does a pope needs to be charismatic or just consistent? Those who defend Parolin bet on their solidity. It is not a man of ruptures. It represents Francisco's line, but with a quieter, more strategic style, perhaps more Roman. If the next pope's mission is to keep the church together as long as the world tries to fragment it, Parolin may be the ideal name. He has already shown this by dealing with difficult agreements, such as China, and keeping an open channel with sectors that require more doctrinal firmness. Your way of sewing without cutting shows a skill that few dominate. Reconcile tradition with prudence. And it is precisely your discretion that makes your name even more intriguing. Because sometimes it is the least that is more prepared to carry the weight of Peter's keys. But among the cardinals, the cry also grows by someone with a face closer to the people, someone who embraces with their eyes and speaks to the heart. When it comes to someone smelling of people, the name of Matteo Zuppi comes out. Bologna Archbishop, His simple and cheerful figure contrasts with the formal costumes of the high ecclesiastical hierarchy. Zuppi does not hide behind titles. He rides a bicycle, talks to homeless people, embraces children as who meets nephews. It's the type of pastor who knows the name of sheep, and that, let's face it, has become rare. It represents, in practice, the continuity of the church on the way out proposed by Francisco. While many still discuss theological theories, Zuppi is in the peripheries, getting his hands dirty, visiting sick, participating in joint efforts. It is as if he said, "Faith that does not serve, it is for nothing." And for a church that needs to regain the hearts of so many who have moved away, this is a powerful message. His relative youth is just over 60 years old, raises debates among the most conservative. Some say it is early, it lacks maturity. But those who walk with him see just the opposite. Energy, opening to dialogue, and a modern look without abandoning the roots. It is like that young teacher who respects the elders, but speaks the language of the students. Zuppi also has the gift of uniting extremes. He has participated in peace initiatives in war zones, dialogue with Muslims, evangelicals, atheists, and even with LGBTQ+ groups, always without giving up their Catholic identity. It is like a bridge, firm in the bases, flexible in the form. And in times when bridges are replaced by walls, this type of profile becomes gold. But even with so many attributes, the doubt hangs in the air. Is the Cardinal College ready for a pope with this popular face? Or will the desire of someone more institutional prevail? Meanwhile, the world also looks at the East, where a cardinal with wide smile and vibrant faith begins to draw attention. Among the wooden benches of simple churches in the Philippines came a man who is now seen as a bridge between continents and hearts, Luis Antonio Tagle. When he speaks, it's not just the voice that sounds light. It's like every word carries compassion. His eyes shine with that mixture of joy and reverence, as one who sees God in the face of the people. No wonder many compare him to John Paul II for his welcoming presence and almost instantaneous charisma. Tagle is the type of pastor who cries with those who suffer. Literally, his speeches thrill because they come from the bottom of his soul. He does not have to scream to convince or attack to defend faith. His vibrant spirituality is the result of a life marked by simplicity, and its Asian origin represents an expanding, living church where Catholicism grows far from the palaces of Europe. In the eyes of more conservative sectors, however, he may seem too close to Francis. The continuity that inspires many also scares others. In some circles, fear is that such an empathic leadership will end up in topics that require doctrinal firmness. But those who know Tagle closely knows. Her sweetness doesn't exclude conviction. She only changes the way he communicates the truth. His international experience, ahead of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, put it in contact with forgotten communities, extreme realities, and deep cultural challenges. It is seen as someone who can translate the gospel into any reality, be it between indigenous, migrants, or urban youth. In times of globalization of indifference, Tagle proposes a globalization of tenderness. If chosen, it would be the first pope from Southeast Asia, a powerful gesture in symbolic and strategic terms. But is the College of Cardinals willing to this geographical and emotional leap? Meanwhile, voices from the global South are also heard from a continent where faith and social justice go hand in hand. From Africa, a firm and moral authority is lifted, Peter Turkson. Born in Ghana, he is known for his commitment to social and environmental causes. It does not only speak of eternal salvation, but also justice here and now. It is the type of cardinal who quotes encyclical and, in the same sentence, speaks of hunger, migration, and climate crisis as part of the Christian mission. He believes that faith without action is like a soulless body, beautiful on the outside, empty on the inside. Turkson has a strong presence. When it speaks, everyone stops to listen. and his history as a leader of the Dicker for integral human development shows that he does not escape difficult topics. He has been in refugee camps, riverside communities, and global forums, always defending the forgotten with serene courage. For many, he is a symbol of Africa who does not ask for space, but conquers him with dignity and prophetic voice. Across the continent, in the cold Hungary, comes Peter Erdo, respected theologian, canonist of formation. He represents the most doctrinal face of the Church. It is admired for its intellectual clarity and for the firmness with which it defends the teachings of tradition. For sectors who want a more guardian of faith pope than a campaign doctor, Erdo appears as a safe, predictable, and deeply rooted option in the foundations of teaching. Erdo is not of wide smiles or effects of effect. Its strength is in the content, consistency, and respect it imposes among the most conservative cardinals. If the college decides for a firmer shift in the church guidelines, its name gains strength. It would be like choosing an experienced conductor to govern an orchestra that needs to rediscover harmony. Two Peters, two possible paths, one more pastoral, one more doctrinal. One comes from the heat of social justice, the other of theological rigor. And while cardinals weigh these options, other names also start to emerge, less spoken, but equally significant. The future of the Church is not always announced with fanfare. Sometimes he whispers in names that few bet, but carry depth and history. Cardinal Sarah, for example, coming from Guinea, is one of the names that doesn't need stage to be noticed. With serene voice and unshakable faith, it represents the most liturgical and traditional profile. For those who miss a more contemplative and reverent Catholicism, Sarah is seen as a lighthouse in the mood. Another name that circulates with respect is Jean-Claude Hollerich, Jesuit of Luxembourg. Its trajectory is marked by listening and dialogue. He does not impose, proposes, does not accuse, understand. And this has made a difference in important pastoral debates, where more than answers, the world needs attentive ears. Hollerich would be the kind of pope who speaks little but transforms a lot, like that teacher who marks a generation without having to raise his voice. And from Brazil, Cardinal Odilo Pedro Scherer is remembered for his balance. Able to unite doctrinal firmness with pastoral sensitivity, it has the respect of distinct sectors of the Church. Scherer is that kind of leader who knows the reality of large cities, but also values the simple faith of the interior. He knows how to move between the sacristy and the favela, between the official document and the hug and the faithful. There are even more discreet, but no less respected figures such as Claudio Hummes, Christophe Sconborn, and Dominique Mamberti, each with their luggage, their spirituality, and their reading of the present time. They represent the depth of the Church that renews itself without fuss, such as the roots that grow in the dark and support the tree in the stormy days. But it is impossible to ignore the impact of a new name that begins to shine with rare intensity. Young, brave, African, and symbol of reconciliation, he not only represents the future, he can be the present himself by imposing himself with prophetic light. Amid so many names consecrated by age and diplomatic experience comes a young face that inspires the courage. Diudon Zapalenga of the Central African Republic. Your name may not be in the first circles of speculation, but your story speaks loudly. In a country marked by violent conflicts, he became a symbol of reconciliation. He was unarmed among armed militias, speaking of peace where he was only heard of hatred. This is not just courage, it is a living testimony of the gospel. Zapalenga's youth is not an obstacle, it is a rare advantage. It represents the new generation of ecclesial leaders who not only know the catechism, but live the Christ from the streets. He speaks the tongue of the marginalized, knows the smell of gunpowder and the strength of the prayer made on his knees over the dust of the earth. It is the type of leader that transforms with the example, not with decrees. This has much more power than you think. It would be the first pope of sub-Saharan Africa and, for many, This choice would not only be historical, it would be prophetic. In times of global crisis, putting on the throne of Peter a man forged in war and compassion is a sign of heaven. It is like saying, suffering does not have the last word. He resembles the early Christians, without palaces, but full of the Spirit. Some consider it too inexperienced. But those who know him know that his maturity does not come from age, but what he has faced and overcame. In a church that seeks to renew its image without losing its roots, Nzapalenga emerges as a breath of hope for young people, Africa, and for all who are no longer represented in such distant structures. And between surprises and expectations, the cardinals are increasingly gathered. Because behind all this profile analysis, there is a secret that the modern world cannot understand. The conclave is not based on a common election. It is a profoundly spiritual process. For many outside, the conclave looks like a sophisticated election, as if the cardinals were there discussing who has the most vows or influence. But it's not like that. The conclave is first and foremost a retreat, a time of silence, fasting, and prayer. The 135 cardinals do not enter the Sistine Chapel as politicians. They enter as servants, aware that choosing the next pope is a task that can only be done with the heart glued to the sky. Within the closed doors, cell phones are left behind, but faith gets more alive than ever. Each cardinal takes with it their experiences, their doubts, their knees calloused. The Mass Pro Elegendo Pontifice marks the beginning of this path. It is a liturgy that is not meant to impress, but to remember that the choice needs to come from God, not human interests. It is as if each one said, "Lord, guide us because we alone lose ourselves." During voting, there is no applause, no warm discussions. There is silent prayer and looks that try to discern. The votes are deposited as a gesture of trust, not as a strategic calculation. Many fast, others spend the night in prayer. The Church, in its deepest core, remembers who it is, not a company, but a mystical body, guided by a spirit that blows where it wants. This spiritual process is something that escapes modern logic. But that's where beauty is. While the world requires quick results, cardinals are called to wait, listen, to discern. They know they are not just choosing one administrator. They are asking God for a pastor. And the favorite is not always chosen. Sometimes it is the unlikely that carries divine breath. And it is in this climate of delivery, reverence, and fear that something happens. A white smoke rises. A name is announced. And before the world knows him, that man kneels, not before the throne, but before the people, asking for a simple and powerful thing: prayer. When white smoke rises and St. Peter's bells resonate, the whole world stops. It is as if time held your breath for a few seconds. The crowds cluster in the square, the eyes stick to the Vatican's windows, and the hearts wonder, who will it be? But even before you know the name, something much bigger is revealed: the miracle of unity. Millions of people, of different cultures, languages, and stories, united around a single moment. The new pope appears, not with crowns, not glory, but with a gesture that speaks more than any speech. He kneels before the people. Ask prayer, ask for help, asks for heart. This disconcerted humility. In a world where everyone wants to be served, the new leader begins his mission serving. It is the sign that the Church needed, not of power, but of presence, not proud, but delivery. Your voice is quiet, your face serene. He does not promise miracles, but his simple appearance already lights a flame. Many are thrilled, others kneel together. The gesture of simplicity, so rare today, transforms that moment into something eternal, as if heaven opened a crack to remind everyone, God is still in charge. And when a leader starts bending his knees, the faithful feel they can trust. In the following days, the crowds fill the square again, but now with hope in the eyes. The new pope, even without saying much, is already beginning to heal old wounds. His faithfulness to tradition, mixed with a sincere opening to the real world, brings a new courage. He did not come to divide, but add, not to change the essence, but to rekindle the flame that seemed erased in many hearts. And in the midst of this spiritual renaissance, a new question begins to circulate. What will be from the Church now, under this new light? What can we expect from this leadership? The answers are yet to come, but the people already feel that something divine began to move again. If this content has touched your heart, then don't keep it just for you. Leave an amen in the comments as a sign of faith and hope for this new time. And if you want to go further, write your prayer for the future of the Church and for the one who will be chosen to guide the flock of Christ. Sometimes a simple word of yours can inspire others to put themselves into prayer. And don't forget, if you are not already subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell. Here you will closely follow the backstage, the analysis, and the messages that really make a difference in spiritual life. And if you want to support this project, contribute a super like or any value. It helps us keep taking the truth and faith to you.